All right, welcome back to part two of this Howard Terminal Summit. Casey Pratt with Brodie Brazil. If you missed the first part, that's on Brodie's channel. Here we are doing the second part. We're going to continue talking about Rob Manfred's comments about Oakland in Las Vegas, and that's kind of where we left off with Brodie's video. So if you missed that first part, check it out. Come on back, or just stay here. We'll be good here.
Where exactly did we leave off? Like it got so messy so fast.
It did get messy fast, and I think a reason why it got messy so fast is kind of a statement on the media today, and we're both part of the media, so we are well-versed in how this happens, but a national writer misinterpreted a comment from an interview that wasn't available online yet. Everyone ran with it, right. And then what happens is aggregators from every major media outlet start posting links and stories all based off that first comment, right? Exactly. And that is kind of a problem with how the media works today, right?
And when he said things like, yeah, the A's can't play at the Coliseum 5 more years. That's not new, right? The fact that the Coliseum is not up to the standard of other facilities, that's not new. But none of that, of course, got included. And even when asked, when Chris Russo asked the commissioner, Rob Manfred, so you're saying it's likely that they'll move. And he said, I did not say that. But somehow that ended up in a tweet that the A's were likely to be moving to Las Vegas, and it was all over. So, yeah, you're right. It quickly got turned, and it quickly got spread. And really, before anybody could put the fire out, and like we were saying in part one, it wasn't until the actual audio surfaced, and you listen to it, and you're like, what? That's the takeaway from all this? So, but I just hope it didn't cause any damage, right? Like, because the common person may only see the headline, may only see the major news, and like you never know how far somebody took that to heart before they realized it's not how it played out. So it was rough.
Yes, so many people texted me that day like, oh, there you go, A's are leaving. And I'm like, right. How did you come to that conclusion?
I thought that until
the same thing he's always been saying.
I thought it until I heard the full context of the clip. And I would also say too, we're heavy into the Oakland side. We're on every, last word of, well, what's he saying? What does it mean? What's behind this? But the fact that even in what he said was kind of just, it was mild on Oakland. Like, again, nothing really new, nothing bold, nothing earth-shattering other than the obvious. But then he goes out and says, oh, but Tampa is going to stay in Tampa. Like, pretty much, I mean, okay, so maybe he didn't say that, but it was to the extent of Tampa's good. Tampa's going to be fine. I got a lot of confidence in what they're doing. What? Why wouldn't you say that about Oakland first and question Tampa? I mean, Oakland's got binding votes. It's got an EIR. It's got a site. Does Tampa have any or all of that in the process? It caught me off guard. It really did.
I think maybe what Tampa has is it's probably a lot easier to build in Florida than it is in California.
Of course.
But what most importantly Tampa has is no other option, right? Like, remember when they floated the ridiculous, maybe they'll play half the games in Montreal and then play half the games in Tampa, which was the single dumbest idea I have ever heard for a professional sports franchise. That's terrible.
No player is going to want to go through that as the home team of the Rays and Montreal, because you got to move your family halfway through a baseball season. Unheard of, impossible. No way.
It makes no sense. So maybe what's happening here is Manfred is a lot more complimentary of Tampa because there's no Las Vegas to Tampa's Oakland. You know what I mean? Like here, he's trying to gin up this rivalry between Oakland and Las Vegas, try to gin up the leverage. If one side's pulling one way, the other side's pulling the other way, and then we'll get the sweetest deal possible for the billionaire owners. It's not really like that in Tampa, so what does he have to do other than to complement the process there? I mean, crapping on it's not really going to help anybody.
Hey, do you think, and we're obviously now heavy into the whole Tampa side of this, but this was all documented and covered by the national media, right? And I'm not here to knock them. I'm really not. And look, it was Bob Nightingale's tweet that started it all. Bob's fine. There's no problem there. I don't know that he's up to speed on the day-to-day of Howard Terminal or the A's or Las Vegas. Look, you and I are trying to be, but we're not invited to the meetings. We're not flying back and forth. We get what we get, but I'm saying the national media is even like 3 steps farther detached from that. So when they say these things, I don't think they even know like the fire they start sometimes, or the beliefs that are laid out there that may not actually be accurate, or the magnitude of what they say, right? And people are going to buy into it. So not blaming anybody. I just think that was kind of rough how it played out.
I agree with you. And I'm going to say it like this. Look, Nightingale may not have fully understood the situation. If you hear somebody say, things aren't going well in Oakland, well, then the obvious conclusion is Vegas, right?
Right.
And I think in his mind, that's where he went. Like if the commissioner's saying he's not sure he sees it happening here,
right,
well, then that means it's happening in Vegas, right?
Right.
That's a natural conclusion to make for somebody that isn't like fully locked in, dialed in, paying attention to this every twist and turn like we are. In his defense, I will say that.
Yeah.
However, I think that it is sort of irresponsible to misquote somebody, and so that blew up my whole day, probably a lot of your day. And
I was doing a
whole lot of damage control,
doing
to
a
get
hockey game,
real information out to combat the aggregators at that point.
Hey, what did you also think of Chris Russo's interviewing style? And again, he's somebody who is from the opposite coast, has I think some connections out here, but I feel like to ask those bold questions to Major League Baseball's commissioner, and he's like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they're leaving, right? They're leaving. And I'm not trying to get a soundbite, but they're leaving, aren't they? I'm like, of course you're trying to get a soundbite. My bro, you work in radio and the media. We're all trying to get sound bites. So I don't think there was no malice by what he did, but again, he's another person that is just like asking these questions, and the way he even set it up, they can't play there. That's a terrible stadium. It's okay. We get it, Chris, but like your approach and your language on this it seems like it has no like connection to reality here. Anyway, so
it's not the first time either that Mad Dog Chris Russo's kind of been out of touch on his comments when it comes to Oakland, the A's stadium, the future of Oakland, etc. And he's in New York. I mean, I can't blame him for that either. And frankly, he's an OG. That's just his interview style. So, I mean, it just is what it is.
Did you like my impersonation, by the way?
It was really good. And I actually remember when Draymond got mad at him and started calling him Bad Dog instead of Mad Dog. That was cracks me. But you know what? In defense of him, I don't think he did anything wrong in his line of questioning. I know he was leading, but then Manfred said, I didn't say that.
Right.
That's just how he's going to do his interview, and that's fine. The problem was how it was then interpreted.
Right.
And if you remember, like when Nightingale's tweet came out, when I did my like quote tweet clap back to set the scene and like, try to explain it to everybody what's going on here, the very last thing I literally said in that tweet is, has anybody seen a link for this interview? Because I can't find it and I need to hear it to know what the heck's going on.
Right.
And then to credit Chris Russo's people, they then posted the interview.
Right.
And that's when we all heard it. And I quickly transcribed it and tweeted that because I was like, everyone has to see what he really said. Like what he really said isn't what's being run with here.
Yeah.
And so, I don't really blame Russo or Russo's people or anybody at Mad Dog Unleashed. I think it was more about how the information was interpreted. And that to me was the major problem. And you noticed this, Brodie, this is where it got interesting. Because you actually did a really good video, recapping everything that happened on that Saturday. And, that tweet where I think it was Britt Giroli who said, Manfred said he's not talking about Oakland anymore, and we want to, talk about this, gesturing to what was going on the playing field.
Right.
I think Manfred made these comments on Russo's show. I think they were innocuous. I mean, it's the same thing he's been saying for years now, and it got interpreted wrong and blew up. Then when the writers approached him about it, I don't think he really understood that they were misinterpreted and put out kind of in a way he didn't understand.
Right.
Because he said the words, he said the same thing he's always been saying. Why is that suddenly major news?
Right.
And he was approached like it was major news. He probably didn't even see the Nightingale tweet. Then you'll notice once he probably saw or his staff saw the Nightingale tweet, what happened next? He did an interview with the LA Times, Bill Shaken, great writer at the LA Times.
That's right.
Where he explained it in greater detail. He did come back and answer the questions and clear the air with one of his guys in Shaken. And basically really went against everything that was implied in that Nightingale tweet. So I think at the time, I don't think he knew that the information he put out was spun the wrong way. And then when he realized it was, he quickly got the word out to Shakin, who's a big, well-known, respected writer, to clear the air. I think that's kind of how it all played out to me.
The precise quote, though, "I'm done talking about Oakland," end quote. It was like, okay, wait a second. You opened up that can and then you slapped us in the face and then you walked away. But to your point, I don't think anybody had fully grasped what happened and what got ran with, including
him, right? Yeah. Like that's where I defend him. I really think he should talk to me. I think he should talk to you. Heck, he should talk to both of us.
Well, speaking of that,
we should talk to Manfred. He should talk to someone who actually knows what's happening.
A certain sports network has told young Brazil, I'm not young anymore, you might be going to San Diego for winter meetings because we want to set up this conversation. Now, look, I don't know, based on the firestorm the last time he brought it up, Manfred did, like, is he or his people, are they going to be willing to go into, but I would love to have an educated discussion with him. And I understand he's going to be guarded. I understand it's a negotiation. I understand he represents all the teams and the A's too, but I just want to try and actually humanize where he's at on this, what he sees from, 35,000 feet. So I hope it is a possibility, but at this point, I don't know if he will.
I was really hard on him a year ago. It was about a year ago this time when he said that he didn't see a path to success in Oakland.
Yeah,
I was very hard on him on social media. I'm sure he didn't see it. Maybe he did. But then a couple weeks later, Oakland got the EIR certified, and I reached out to him, and he did actually respond to my email.
Yeah.
And that was cool because that helps. It really helps to have the people in charge of things actually respond when you reach out, because how else are you going to tell the story correctly? And the thing I take from it, and I take from this the same way with these most recent comments, he's still referring to Las Vegas as the alternative, right?
Is that where we're going next? Because there's a lot to get to there we haven't even really touched on.
I say we do, because he is referring to Las Vegas as the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Oakland's the plan. Vegas is the alternative. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it still is. Now, could that change? Absolutely. But right now, crickets out of Vegas.
Does that worry you? Does that make you confident? What does that do? I'm not sure what to read into that.
I think it could be both ways, just like it could be both ways here. And we'll get to the silence in Oakland later in this video. But right now, and I recently sat down with Mick Akers, who is a really good source on Las Vegas athletics, Las Vegas sports, most anything happening down on the Strip. Mick covers it. And I was asking him about, if Oakland just flat out flops, does that really kill any leverage the A's have negotiating with Las Vegas, right? If Oakland isn't an option anymore, why would Vegas pony up? Now they can play hardball. And frankly, that's another reason why the Manfred comments would have made no sense.
Right.
If Manfred came out and said, Oakland's done.
Right. Hello, Las Vegas.
Turned to Las Vegas and said, hey, let's make a deal. Vegas would be like, nah.
Right.
like, you got no other option. Now we're really going to grind you here. So that's not what happened. But what Mick said to me, and this is really interesting, is it has to be on the Strip. It's not happening in Summerlin or anywhere else, Henderson, whatever. It's not happening. It's got to be on the Strip. And there's really two different spots on the Strip that they're looking at. And really, it could end up being a bidding war between those two entities and those two spots amongst themselves. And that's where Vegas could possibly withstand some of the leverage if Oakland doesn't hold up their end of the bargain. That is what scares me. Let's just say some really rich people that want the Tropicana site and some really rich people that want the Festival Ground sites start butting heads and trying to see who can land Major League Baseball. That to me is the biggest concern if you're looking at it from an Oakland positive perspective.
I got two things I want to bring up. They're also now planning to build an NBA arena. I mean, I thought T-Mobile Arena was like the winter venue, right? With the Golden Knights already there, and they could work it just like, I almost said Staples Center, but Crypto.com. You got the Kings, and then you got the Lakers and Clippers not for long, but you could have all your winter sports teams. That building's already built. It's already on the Strip. It's amazing to me that people are already trying to build another NBA-specific arena down there. How would that interfere with what the A's are trying to negotiate for in land down there? And the other thing I found curious is just that up till this point, we don't exactly know how inflation is going to impact anywhere the A's build. And a lot of people have said, well, I mean, look at infrastructure, right? And Oakland now has to go back and get more money. The cost of things have gone up in the last 12 months just for everything across our country. But inflation is going to be an issue in Las Vegas too, right? So for some reason, inflation is tied to what Oakland can't pay for or is short on. How would that make Las Vegas any better or easier? I'm lost on that one. So
yeah, steel is more expensive because of the tariffs here and in Las Vegas.
You're buying a lot of steel, huh?
Problem here and in Las Vegas. The stocks of Gap, the company John Fisher owns, plummeting is a problem here and in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The money isn't really there like it was before. So I think in dragging their feet, they've created a window of opportunity for Las Vegas to step up and offer something really sweet. But there's no indication that's coming. They don't have a stadium site picked out. We're already on the World Series this year, midway through. Remember, after the last World Series, they were supposed to put out the renderings. They never came.
Right.
So there's really no indication that there's anything major happening in Las Vegas. And no matter what you want to say about Las Vegas, I'll tell you this, Brodie. Las Vegas doesn't have any waterfront property. What's more valuable
You don't want to go out to Lake
than
Mead?
Waterfront property in California? Nothing Vegas has to offer can match that.
How about just market size too? And I don't even mean fans that would go to games, although I'm still, look, baseball is different than hockey and football in terms of dates and attendance and cost of going to a game. It's apples and oranges no matter. Somebody will say, well, the Golden Knights play there and they have a good crowd. Yeah, but like, who goes to the Stanley Cup final in their very first year of existence? And it's just a lot. And football's 8 home dates a year, plus it's football. Plus, weren't Raiders players having to defend their home crowds being taken over by visiting teams' fans?
Constantly.
Oh my gosh. So like, yeah. And I'm not saying like the A's just want to sell tickets, right? If they were in Las Vegas, any team would, but I don't know how much you're banking on Las Vegas as a proper MLB market yet. And I think that's what the A's are finding out, because I do think, you know, Major League Baseball is still very interested in the Las Vegas market. I think we should establish that. We're documenting the A's involvement and whatever. But I think, honestly, what Dave Stewart's doing in Nashville, that is like the slam dunk to me. And I'm not saying that from any source of specific knowledge. I mean, I'm just reading the room on that one. And it seems like baseball is ready for Nashville. I think there's still some questions about Las Vegas. They like it, but I think there's some questions there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Las Vegas for an expansion team. I love Nashville for an expansion team, the Nashville Stars and everything Dave Stewart's doing. And I think if Oakland and Tampa Bay can be figured out, then Major League Baseball can look to expand. And all this work the A's have done in Vegas already will clear the way for an expansion team there. And it will also really make it worth putting them on revenue sharing and getting this figured out. I think they're essentially paying the A's for their Las Vegas due diligence should it come up in the future, because they hope that things will work out here. The other thing too is if you're a casino magnate, Sheldon Adelson really was the guy that made the Raiders deal happen. That's not really happening there. But if you are a casino magnate out there, what's in it for you to really make this happen for John Fisher and the A's? Like, you would want to buy in. You would want to own this team. You would want to have at least a major ownership stake in this team to put all your muscle behind a deal that would get the A's there. Because frankly, Major League Baseball isn't the draw that the NFL is. Right. And I think that, bringing a horde of people in for a week of play in Vegas to then sit at a game for 3 to 4 hours on Sunday isn't a problem. Trying to entice like Royals fans or heck Mariners fans to come here 4 times a year and then to have people sitting at the stadium 3 to 4 to 5 hours and not at the tables, several days a week isn't really great for Vegas, in my opinion.
What's that word you use? Magnate? Yeah, I've seen that word. I don't really use it, but I like that. So I'm that person, right? Of course, I don't want you coming all the way down to the airport, flying in, and not spending time at my casino, my restaurant, my pool with cabanas. Like, I want you on my property, spending money, entertainment, going out to a show at my theater, like all that stuff. I don't know that I want you to spend 5 hours away from my place and just come back and use it as the hotel room it is. So to your point, I think anywhere, any Major League Baseball team, let's remove the A's for a second. Any Major League Baseball team that goes down to that city has something unique in the guest, the visitor and guest level, and the fact that you almost have to jump into a relationship with one of those properties. Number one, to get the actual land and to get the property, but to also have a synergy in a relationship that would get fans to come down there and have everybody on the same page. You can't do it the wrong way and have it work the right way down there.
Yeah, and I think we can probably turn the page from Vegas. I'll leave you with this comment from when I talked to Mick Akers. And, people often ask me what percentage I think this thing will happen in Oakland versus Vegas. I asked Mick because, he's as dialed in at Vegas as most people. And I said 55 Oakland, 45 Vegas. He said 50-50. And,
wow.
For two of the people that follow the most development-wise on this thing in these two cities, to be that close on our percentages, I think that it's pretty telling. And I'd ask you now, what do you put your percentage at?
I got to tell you, I'm still a little bit more optimistic about Oakland. And I think the one big thing right now, I mean, what is the holdup? What's the pause? What's the setback? It's not people's opinions on the project. It's not that it can't clear an EIR or a BCDC vote or the lawsuits. All those things are working out favorably. It's one thing: money, infrastructure money. Where can Oakland secure, what is right now in the hundreds of millions? It was in the tens of millions. They got the gap down to that much. Then all of a sudden they redo the estimates. And look, it's a good thing, I think, that they've redone the estimates so that they're still working on this behind the scenes. My point is, that's the holdup right now in the entire process. So of all the things in politics and opinions and decisions, this project has overcome a variety of different things. Can it overcome money? If it can overcome that part, and specifically the offsite infrastructure, I think the rest of it. So that leads me to being a little bit higher than, Casey, I think I'm 65 Oakland? 70? 65,
Whoa,
70? I know.
70, 30?
I feel like there has to be a way. There have to be creative options to bridge that gap and lock that in. Now, I also realize there's part of it too, right? Like, the weight is going to fall on the A's. Like, you're the backstop. You're the ones that'll be responsible if this keeps going up or the project changes or goes over. So I don't know. I feel like Oakland has yet to really, they haven't taken the swing yet. But I feel like when they do take the swing, they're going to make contact.
All right. So let's talk about a creative solution then.
Yes.
And one could be John Fisher selling the team to somebody that would actually pay for the infrastructure and just get this thing built. But we're not going there yet.
Well, I think he would pay it too, and then want to get reimbursed. Like, why would you not? I would not buy my house and then say, oh, well, you know what, neighborhood? You don't even have a sewer system here, so I'll pay for everybody's sewer and we'll call it a day, right? That's ridiculous. Anyway,
yeah, so the offsite is an issue. And in fairness, Oakland said themselves they would take care of the offsite. Now there's a shortfall. And fortunately, they did frame it that way, because if it wasn't framed that way, then all of a sudden it was way more expensive than the projections. They would have been hosed. So now they got to figure it out. How do they figure it out is the mega projects grant, $180 million they've applied for from the Department of Transportation. Mayor Pete, as we used to know him, now Transportation Secretary Pete, is in charge. And Libby Schaff recently actually had him in town going over a different grant. They did a tour around the area. He's seen it. He knows what's going on. He's been lobbied. Vice President Kamala Harris has been lobbied. And now the opponents are starting to lobby. And this week we saw a letter from a congressman with 10 other congressional people on it, all of which are Republicans, all of which are telling Mayor Pete they don't think the federal infrastructure dollars should come here. And to me, when I see that, 11 Republicans lobbying a Democrat against sending money to a Democrat city, I don't think that's going to be a very successful strategy. 2, the closest person on that letter is in Napa. Everyone else is in Southern California, Central California, states even as far away as Alabama, I believe. Nobody that has anything to do with the actual Bay Area was signing in on that letter. So I don't think it's a huge concern. In fact, I think it's sort of ridiculous. And if you read the copy of the letter, it's very obvious where this appeal came from. And it is very clear that a certain group here has lobbied their people to get this letter sent. And now that same group is starting a letter writing campaign to get letters sent to Mayor Pete, just like they did a letter writing campaign to try to lobby the city council to put this on the ballot. Same exact thing is happening now. All that tells me, Brodie, is that this thing is getting close to coming in. And I think, like everything else they've lobbied against, it is probably going to be an L for them.
Speaking of,
what do you think of that?
Well, speaking of close to the end, I think we're almost at that. I wanted to give you the time warning. I'm keeping time over here. I just want to let you know. I think that's like me writing a letter to the commissioner of baseball saying I'm not a Yankees fan. It's obvious.
Take money away from the Yankees.
No, it's obvious, right? I think like that one is not too hard to read into of exactly what it is and exactly where it came from. And I don't even put a whole lot of thought into second guessing into the fact that it would change the mind of again, people who are going to decide where these monies go from the federal level. I think Oakland has already secured a lot. They've convinced a lot. They're not getting these monies if they didn't have this project going on. So I don't know that politics like that are going to get in the way of federal or state monies. So
I think that's a good thing. And we'll end on this last topic, last point, because I know we're hitting the time warning. And this is our second video reminder. Go to the first one if you haven't watched it on Brodie's channel. It's been very quiet here. It's been very quiet in Vegas. I'll tell you why I think it's quiet, and then we can talk about why we think it's good or bad. I think it's quiet because right now, they're going to sit there and they're going to wait to see how the election shakes out. They're going to wait to see how this infrastructure grant comes in, and they're going to wait till the final appeals of the lawsuits happen. All of that should be happening by the end of the year, if not very early next year. And they're still negotiating. So why? What benefit do they have to jump in and sign a deal now when they still have these things right there coming down the pipe? What do you think?
Again, I think it's hard to come to an agreement if the goal line of finances are still moving, right, from the A's. And as for the silence on both sides, really, first off, you understand that we're talking about the city of Oakland at this point, right? I mean, but Las Vegas has been silent down there too. Like if I was somebody getting close to a partnership with the A's, I might start leaking things out a little bit. So we'll leave Vegas aside for a second. But in terms of the Oakland side of it, they must be making progress because silence usually happens when progress is being made or they see something imminent. Again, I also think we're at that weird time of Oakland is short on the infrastructure money that it said it wanted to go out and achieve and secure through these federal and national grants. And also the turnover of mayor and everything else. So I think I understand why the A's are saying it's been busy. This has been a busy year. Let's call it a year, right? Like, I don't know that them being silent on this is a bad thing. I think that's in our mind. It's in our personalities to think, oh, no news is bad news. Like, why wouldn't there be conversation about this? Conversation's good, but also I think sometimes we saw too much conversation about this and not enough actual action taking place. I'm not disturbed by it. I understand why I think it's happening right now. And again, I'm led to believe that progress is still being made behind the scenes. And even if it's slower, it's still better than no progress. It's certainly better than, the reversal of things. I guess the way I look at it, Casey, is like 2022. Look what's happened from January 1st to today, the beginning of November. Like, there's been a lot of key things that have come through on this project that, granted, we wanted the full thing. We wanted the whole, the whole enchilada, the EIR done, BCDC done, binding vote done, and let's send it to the county. But I think we're just going to have to wait. But I don't think silence is bad on that.
let's end on this.
All right.
If a year ago, Brodie, I had told you the A's in Oakland will have a certified EIR,
right,
BCDC port priority use cleared, and about $300 million raised for infrastructure,
right,
you would have been over the moon, as would I have, right?
Right.
And that's what we have.
And people
right
generally
now.
favorable, like you're getting, like, and look, let's go back to the 2 mayoral candidates. 2 generally favorable mayors that are going to replace the current one who, pushed the project this far. It's not, tell me the money aside, what's in a really bad spot? I don't know.
I can't really say anything is. I mean, aside from the silence, which can be interpreted as a good thing because, as we know, they're still negotiating. And during a negotiation, you don't put information out because that's bad tactic. That's it. I mean, honestly, if you really take the whole thing as a whole, like, heck, we could even start from the moment they announced Howard Terminal as their preferred site. From that moment on, so much has happened so fast that it's actually, if you look at it like that, it's hard to be too negative. I mean, people want to look at the entire saga all the way back to, downtown Oakland sites and Fremont sites and San Jose sites and Laney, Lake Merritt sites. No, just start from Howard Terminal because that's really what matters. And if you look at it from there, we're not in a bad spot.
Not at all. This has been good. I've enjoyed this. Well, I don't know when we'll do this again, but it might be early 2023, to be honest. So, or unless something major happens. So,
unless Manfred opens his mouth again.
Well, there we go. Part 2. Do you do this? How do you end your videos here? What do? You sign it off? What do you do?
I'm just chill. Let's say, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to subscribe to Brodie's channel. Don't forget to follow us on all social platforms. And come check with us before you jump off to any major conclusions when the national media reports anything. Peace.